there, health coach. Are you confused about what to do during your first official coaching session with a new client? I hear from a lot of new coaches who feel like they know how to facilitate a free initial health history or discovery session, and they know how to close the deal, but then they're not exactly sure what to do after that. So as a coaching circle facilitator with IIN, I've seen so many health coaching students confused about how to actually coach. And I see this so often that I actually created a course called Health Coaching Essentials, and in it, I teach a full framework, a process, and a structure for an entire coaching program from your free discovery call to your final session and everything in between. And so today I want to share with you a few tips of what not to do during that first session, and then my process for what to do. So let's start with what not to do during your first initial coaching session with a new client. So number one, you do not want to be the expert. You don't want to try or fix your client. Don't overwhelm your client with educational materials, resources, suggestions, and recommendations. Your client likely already knows what they need to do, but they need your help in doing it. So instead, be the ally, the guide, the co-creator, and their accountability partner, not the expert, not the teacher or authority. My second don't is don't jump into action too quickly. I see many health coaches giving lists of recommendations and protocols on the first call. But if you haven't spent time actually setting the agenda and the foundation and identifying your client's readiness for change, then too much too soon might actually backfire. My third don't is don't fall into the chit-chat trap. As a new coach, in your first session with a new client, you're likely pretty nervous. You want to provide value. You want your client to like you. And so what I hear from so many new coaches is that they just end up chit-chatting with their client through the whole session without ever getting to actual coaching, which can feel frustrating and unproductive. So those are some things not to do during your first session. Now let's talk about what to do during that first health coaching session. So these I want to share with you today are my top 6 do's. Number 1, do some grounding or centering before the call. As we already just discussed, you're going to be nervous. It's your first official session. This client has paid you good money and now you have to deliver. So you need to calm your nerves so that you can be fully present. And so I recommend taking some time first to develop your agenda and your checklist for the session. Think of all the things that you want to cover, review your notes from your health history or discovery call, and then take a few minutes to get grounded and centered. Maybe it's a breathing exercise, a guided visualization, a meditation. Maybe you want to do some physical movement if you're jittery. Lighting a candle, using essential oils, whatever works for you. Just don't skip over this part because it really helps immensely. My second do is set the foundation. So this first session is all about establishing the expectations for the coaching relationship. It's all about building rapport and trust and inviting the client to do some self-exploration. So in my course, I teach that the first 2 to 3 sessions of your coaching program should be all about setting the foundation and setting your client up for coaching success. So I recommend scheduling 90 minutes for this first session because there's a lot to cover. And I find an hour isn't long enough. So I always feel like we're just getting into a nice rhythm and then we have to wrap it up. So I do like this 90-minute period to really be able to dive into things. My third do is review your coaching agreement. So prior to this first session, you would have sent an agreement and a welcome packet to your client to complete and send back to you. I call this the onboarding process. So then when we come together on this first call, I like to go through and highlight key aspects of the agreement, making sure that the client is in complete agreement. Perhaps there's something they want to add or something they don't agree with. You also want to take time and really discuss confidentiality and privacy and provide an opportunity for the client to ask any questions about the agreement, because the agreement sets the expectations and it's really important to ensure that everything is extremely clear. My fourth do is do review the welcome packet. So as I mentioned, I also send a welcome packet in advance that's intended to help set your client up for coaching success. It's kind of like a primer that includes various contemplative type questions that get your client thinking about themselves and the coaching relationship and what they want to get out of it. So you'll get the client to complete the welcome packet and send it back to you before this first session. So during the session, or actually before the session, you'll review it and highlight areas that you want to discuss further with the client. This is going to give you a nice understanding of the client and their story. This really sets the stage for further work down the road around values and visioning. So definitely do review the welcome packet. My fifth do is do explore the big picture with a circle or a wheel of life. So this is another thing I like to include in the welcome packet, a circle or a wheel of life. So the client can start taking that big picture view of their life and then identify which areas they might need your coaching support with. So together you can review during the session what the client noticed about the circle, what came up for them, identifying the areas that are working well, and discussing those areas that might need some work. So this really is the beginning phase of the goal setting process that you will continue on with a bit later. And then finally, my sixth do is do take time to wrap up. So if you get all of this completed during your first session, you'll be doing great. There's a lot to cover, but please leave time to finish strong. So it's nice for you as the coach to do a quick summary of what you covered during the session, then maybe invite the client to share any insights, learnings, or takeaways they had from the session. At this stage, don't be too concerned with action steps because you're still really in this foundation setting stage. However, some clients are really keen to get started and maybe there's something burning they want to work on, and that's totally fine because the client is in the driver's seat, right? So if they want to set something up, take time to help them with action planning and accountability. Also, as I mentioned earlier, I like to do 2 to 4 foundation sessions, which are a little bit more sort of coach directed, as I'm inviting the client to do various exercises and activities to set the foundation. Maybe things like health risk assessments, personality quizzes or questionnaires, values work, visioning exercises, and then of course during the final foundation session, we'll definitely be getting into goal setting and action planning. So at this point in your first session, you really want to discuss the homework and any prep that you'd like the client to complete before the next session. And then finally, you want to take some time to acknowledge your new client. Recognize their strengths, their willing to do this work, their desire to make changes, maybe even congratulating them on taking this important step in their health and wellness journey. Whatever feels right to acknowledge and affirm your client. So I hope this helps to give you some concrete steps of what to do during the first session with a new client. Please leave any questions in the comments below. I'm always happy to answer them. Bye for now. We'll see you next time.